we're going to jump in here and we're going to talk about what we call our trial by fire A-player hiring system. Now, we don't call it trial by fire just because we couldn't come up with a name. I think this name really exemplifies kind of the process that we're going through. We're not hiring people and we're not interviewing people to like them. We're not interviewing them because we want to mold them into what we need. We're looking for a very specific mindset and a very specific person. And David's going to walk through everything from their action modes to the exact hiring process that we use with our practices here starting right now. So David, welcome on board.
Yeah, thanks. And I think it's critical for us to just remember, if we go back to the A-player recruiting system that we talked to you guys about, remember your hiring system is only going to be as good as what you guys are putting into it. And remember, a lot of the A-players out there are not, some of them are actively looking for a new position, but most A-players are not actively out there searching. And that's where it's so important for you guys to be able to leverage a recruiting strategy that when they get home that night and they are just fed up with it, and they're not necessarily to the point where they're going to go search for something else, but they can see that recruiting piece, that little post on social media, and they've seen your practice before and they've been following it, and that triggers them to come into your hiring system. That is absolutely critical. Your hiring system is never going to create an A-player in the middle of it. Your hiring system should only reveal an A-player if they are sitting in front of you. And if you're not getting the right number of candidates and the right quality of candidates, like we talked about, right? More and better potential candidates in your recruiting funnel, then there will be an issue. Now, like Colin said, the trial by fire system. The main reason why we've got that name is one of the things that we want to do here is we want to allow you guys to really understand that your likability in the process, you guys might be overestimating that. I've sat in on interviews where you can tell the doctor likes the candidate and they are, short of fawning over them, and they are trying to sell them on why they should be a part of their practice, and they're being really nice to them, and it's too much. It actually makes the person think, well, do I really want to be a part of this thing? It's the same thing in courtships, like we've talked about before. If somebody's coming on too strong, it makes you wonder, well, why is that? Now, if they're too aloof as well, then they're not interested, and it impacts the relationship. But I want you guys to really think about the environment that you're creating in your hiring process is not one where you need to get people to like you in your practice by being nice. You want them to be excited about your practice based on what you have to offer, and be okay to turn up the pressure, turn up the heat. And that's why we call it the trial by fire. And in one of the examples that we're going to give you in the complete hiring system, we're going to go through 2 of those steps here today. Turn up the heat on them and let them know that not just anybody can be a part of this. Not just anybody can be a part of this family, but I think I really like you, and you could be, but it's not a shoo-in, right? Easy money is fast money. If I make if somebody gives me $20,000, I'm going to spend it a lot faster than if I work a year and I save up every dime. That's the same thing. When it feels like it's too easy to get a job, I do not respect it. I don't appreciate what I got as much. And we want to make sure that fire and that heat is turned on in the process so that they really understand that they earned it. Now, additionally, when you've got a good barrier of entry into your practice to be a part of the team, guess who else is more appreciative and grateful for the position that they're in? Everybody else on your team. When it seems too easy to get into the practice, it devalues their position. When there's a high barrier and a high wall to get over to be able to join the team, then that improves their own viewpoint and perspective on how important their role is, and it raises their level of appreciation. Now, all of this being said, we understand roles are vacant in your practice sometimes, and sometimes you just got to get the best one in that you can. We would all love to be able to hire for months until we found that perfect person. But again, going back to the recruiting system, that's why you guys need to focus so much on that. All right, let's go ahead and dive into it, Colin. So we're still gonna reference this, and we're still going to just kind of beat the drum on this A player profile. Again, an A player for a fast growing practice is going to be different than an A player for a flatline practice, or a practice that's really just creating a certain quality of life for the doctor that they're enjoying and they're not trying to take it up to the next level. An A player for an early practice that's maybe in the first 6 to 12 months of their existence is going to be different than an A player for a practice that has maybe multi-locations and has been around for 4 or 5 years. There are a lot of different dynamics. Now, the biggest dynamic is you as a practice leader. Who an A player is for you is going to be different than who an A player is for me in its totality. There are some common themes, and we're going to get into those, and those are going to be important, but getting your A player profile set in these 3 areas is so critical. And we'll just revisit it for a quick second here. What's the impact that you are so passionate about your practice having? Now, I know there's a general impact in dentistry. That's fine. And everybody in that community should have a varying level of passion for that impact. But what is your practice doing that's different? Why is it so important that your practice exists, and what impact is it having that's changing things in the community that it's serving by offering that different kind of experience or that different kind of expertise or whatever it might be? What is the passion that's inside of you that you need to be able to draw out, define, and be able to create clarity for your team members so that they can get fired up? What's the approach? How do we want to approach the work on a day-to-day basis? When Colin was talking about fit, usually that's the biggest issue when there's a lack of fit in your practice. It's not that they don't have the skills. It's not that they're not competent enough to do the job. It's not that they're not passionate about dentistry usually. It's that they're just not the right fit. They don't approach the work the way that you do. It's just different. The way people on the West Coast live their life is different than how people approach things on the East Coast. This is the way it works. And you got to you have to be able to define the criteria of how you want the people in your practice to approach the work so that you can recruit a team of people in that approach it the same way, because it creates a higher level of trust. Now, if you remember this from a couple of weeks ago, for those of you repeat attendees here, the 5 dysfunctions of a team, the foundational level of every dysfunctional team is a lack of trust. And that usually comes from a difference in approach. What I subconsciously expect from my teammate, I'm not seeing, therefore I don't trust them as much. I'm not afraid they're going to steal my wallet. That's not the trust we're talking about here. It's an inherent trust in how they're going to approach the work and whether it's going to be aligned to what I expect. So that's the second set of criteria there. When we have passion for the impact and alignment on the approach, and then we've got the right set of skills to be able to perform the job at a high level, then we've got an A player when we get the mixture of those 3. Now, the assets that we're gonna, the processes that we're gonna go through here with you are really gonna be focused on the approach side. That's why we've got the red arrow there. The impact, you can tell. You're gonna be able to tell if they're passionate enough about dentistry, and you're gonna be able to give them the ability. It's easier for you to convey the impact that you're passionate about and really see if there's some common interest there. Your ability to test their skill set. I mean, we're making the assumption that you guys are already doing that. That's a core part of the process that you already have, but it's still not quite getting you the right fit people that you need. So in this example, we're going to go through 2 specific parts of the hiring process that we leverage within practices that are going to help you identify the approach. Now, this is typically the hardest part to assess. It's easy to see if people have skill sets, the proper skill set, but it all starts to break down when we're trying to see, well, who are they really? In the interview, I'm asking them a question, and what are they trying to do? They're trying to give me the answer that I am looking for. Oh, looks like your notification popped up, Colin. They're trying to give me the answer that I'm looking for in that moment. They're trying to give me the right answer in that moment. And the environment of passing the test is not what we're trying to create. We got to get out of that, because we want this to be a right fit for them. And we want to make sure that they're a right fit for us. And there's no multiple choice test and giving us the right answer that's going to make that happen. We need the real answer. We really need to know they need to know who we really are and what we're up to, and we need to know who they really are. And these examples are going to give you these two steps in the process are going to give you guys a way different approach potentially to be able to evaluate who someone is instead of just listening to their interview answer. Okay. Now we're going to try to make this as easy as possible. Colin and I talked about it. This might not be absolutely correct, but this is the 20% that can get you 80% of the way there in terms of identifying the approach. We want to make this drop dead simple for you guys. We want to give it to you exactly like we implement it. And we're going to burn through this and we're going to give you the step-by-step process here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start off with an assessment. So when they're coming through the recruiting funnel, they're going to get to the point of phone screen. And when they get to the point of phone screen, this is now where we're making the decision to bring them in for an in-person interview. Now, you want to make sure you're not wasting a lot of time. Remember that 20 hours it takes to hire someone? Well, your time is valuable. So if someone is not the right fit and we can figure that out with the phone screen and an assessment, then that gives you a better ability to filter people out so you're preserving your valuable time. Those filters are so critical. And I can't tell you how critical they are when you have an extremely effective recruiting machine, because you guys are going to cast a great net and get a lot of great people in. So you got to be able to screen them out and minimize the amount of time, because when you're looking to hire someone, what don't you have? Time. It's a bit of a catch-22, which is, by the way, why some people pull the trigger too fast on that and just fill the seat, because they're feeling the pinch. And it's a very real thing for all practice leaders that you're dealing with. And you got to be aware of it and make sure you build your system to counteract that. So when we look at assessments, practice leaders are searching for candidates with the skills aligned to the position's primary job responsibilities. That's primarily what practice leaders out there are doing, as I said before. So an example of that, a front desk team member could have a lot of experience using computers, maybe some of the software systems that you have, your telephone system, but they still might be a bad fit for the role because they're not good at maybe, let's say, follow through, which is very important for that role. Or they're not good at staying committed to processes, and they're kind of, they kind of go rogue and start doing their own thing. And some of your KPIs or OKRs start to go down. So we want to make sure that we're looking at more than just the skills for the primary job responsibilities. And we're looking at the what, but in a very specific way, like Kolbe does present. So when we use the Kolbe assessment, and that is going to help us better understand, based on their scores across the 4 critical areas, for each individual role, what are the things that you could be looking for that are a great indicator of whether or not their natural approach to work and to life is really in line with that position and what you're looking for in it. Okay. So again, after the phone interview or phone screen, we want to give this to them. We'll look at the scores and then we'll decide whether or not we want to move them on to the in-person interview. So let's go ahead and go through this. We're going to do, we're going to look at the Kolbe personality test in general, and then we're going to go through 3 different roles in your practice as an example of how you can leverage the scores to really assess whether or not they're the right fit. So what are the 4 critical areas? The first one is fact finder. Now, fact finder measures how detail oriented and reliant on facts someone is. So someone that scores high as a fact finder would do well in roles that require gathering and analyzing data, let's say, ensuring that things are exactly the way that they're supposed to be, really key in on the details. Follow through shows how much a person wants structure and process to get from start to finish. So there might be roles as your practice is evolving where you need people to wear different hats. Well, maybe during that phase, you might not want somebody that has high follow through, let's say. The ability to, or sorry, you you do want somebody with low follow through who's going to be able to be flexible and not in a rigid process that's telling them exactly what it is that they need to be doing every step of the day. Today, we need you to focus on this. For this month, we need you to focus on that. Now, some people are more inclined to bypass systems to get things done. And if that's correct, if that's what you're looking for, you want to be able to recognize that. Okay. All right. Next one is quick start. This measures how likely someone is to take risks, whether that be by innovating, experimenting, or improvising. Now, when you're looking at someone with the quick start ability, then you're looking at someone who's going to be in dynamic situations. You're going to be looking at someone who's going to be patient facing and is going to have to adjust to the reactions that they're giving and the responses that they're giving, and be able to innovate in that a specific conversation to be able to create the outcome that you want. Now, if that's not a part of the role, then the quick start score is not something that you're looking for high marks in. And the last one is implementer. Implementer measures how we work within how we work with physical space. Do we like to work with our hands? Can we see? Can you see in your mind's eye how physical objects work together? Can I get something done? Can I take my space and the elements within it and go and make something happen? Can I see it through to the outcome necessary in a way that is fast, efficient, and effective is how we look at it. So as you're looking at each one of the roles, and again, we're going to go through 3 of them here, you're going to start to get a really good sense of the people that are coming through. They're taking these assessments. Do they really have the right approach for what you're looking for as you take an initial shot at creating scores and baselines around each one of these? All right, so let's start off. We're going to go into first the associate. So your associate, for example, you're going to be looking for a Kolbe assessment to come back from them with high fact finder. We need our associates to be detail oriented. We know that if they're not detail oriented, there are going to be problems. Again, a quick way to understand if this is a part of who they naturally are, or is this something that they have to really focus on to be good at, and there might be some weakness there. The second one is implementer. Again, being able to work within a physical space with their hands. How are they capable of taking the objects around them, executing in a way where they get to an efficient, effective outcome each and every time? Colin, you'd love this one. Do you want to speak more about?
Yeah, we did a big survey. We did a big survey years ago. We gave all of our dentists and a bunch of other dentists Kolbes. And dentists on average are an 8.624. And that means that they're very high fact finder, they're medium follow through, very, very, very low quick start, almost no quick start, and they're moderate on implementer. And that survey was focused on these were not associates; these were primarily doctor owners. So that profile varies a little bit from the associate dentist, but that's kind of the average that we typically see. And I think that really reflects the nature of who wants to become a dentist. It's a very data-driven occupation. It's very intensive with your hands, creating things and doing work. I bet if I've heard it once, I've heard it 1,000 times. Dentists say, I had the best hands in my class, right? I may not have had the highest grades, but by golly, I had the best hands. And, that's what implementer is. It's the ability to work with objects in your space and do that. Quick start, the average dentist, the average is a 2, which basically means there's no quick start. That manifests itself typically, always seeking a very high level. Let's only back up. The quick start and the fact finder are often inversely proportional. Not always, but oftentimes they are, because the higher level of facts we need, the lower our desire to get started quickly. Now, I've met people that have an 8 quick start and an 8 fact finder, and they're very interesting people to be around and work with. We're not going to talk about that. That's another story. But most dentists are high fact finder, low quick start. And that means you're seeking a lot of data before you're ready to make a decision. You have a very high threshold, and dentistry is a detail-oriented occupation. It reflects who dentists are, who you guys are. So yeah, was that what you were looking for there, David? I thought that was a really cool survey we did years ago. Getting, I don't remember how many hundreds of Kolbe surveys we put out there, a bunch of them. But I think it gave us a really good insight into where dentists in general, not all, in general, what they need, where they need a lot of support, how we can best help them. And what came out of this for us from SmartBox was a lot of the systems and processes we've adapted to fit that kind of average Kolbe profile, because that's what's needed, right?
Yeah. And it brings it, when you're looking at the dynamic of your team on this stuff as well, with one of the practices that Colin was referring to, what happened was the doctor was having difficulty with the past associate being a little bit of a stick in the mud and not necessarily getting things going as quickly as they wanted to. And when they went into their quick start, when they went into the Kolbe profile and what they were expecting, they didn't want the quick start to be too high, but the doctor was looking for someone with a quick start higher than the previous associate that they had. And it was because they knew that was creating issues, and they weren't wrong for not wanting to execute more quickly and effectively with less fact finding. It's just the way that they were. But the doctor knew that it wasn't the right fit for the period that they were in, and he wanted someone that was going to be a little bit higher. So he adjusted the profile that he was looking for within the Kolbe for that specific case. Some of these things are going to be, yes, you want them, and then no, you don't. Some of them are going to be, for some roles in some situations, they're going to be things that you're going to be able to make decisions on to improve the next hire. And that's really the thing you always got to focus on. If every single time you hire someone, you get just a little bit better at it because you do a postmortem, because you analyze what happened with the previous hire, and you continue to make small improvements to your process, small optimizations to your process, right? Now you got to have an actual process to make improvements to first. But if you do that over the course of a year or two, you're going to start to become a master at hiring. That's how we got to all of this, through that kind of optimization process.